So in the last lecture video, we looked at heat conduction, heat transfer by conduction. Today we want to look at heat transfer by convection. And these two modes of heat transfer are different. For heat transfer by conduction is mostly for solids and liquids. But heat transfer by convection is by liquids and gases, which basically we call them fluids. Now, suppose that I want to heat a small room. Now the tendency is that I'll need a small electric heater. I'll need to plug it into electricity and allow it to heat up the room. But now the question is, how does that take place? How is heat transfer from that small electric equipment, the small pad in that particular area of the room, to the entire area of the room? That's the question we want to answer. And that process is termed convection. Now what happens now when I turn on the heater, the small electric heater, what happens is that the vicinity around the heater is heated up, and air at that point becomes heated up, it becomes hot, it becomes less dense, and because of it being less dense with relative to the other air in the entire house, what happens is that it begins to rise up. I mean, obviously, because the cold air in the other side of the room is denser than the warm air around the vicinity of the electric heater. As a result of these differences, what happens is that hot air around the vicinity rises up and cold air fills the position in which the air was. And as that process keeps taking place, hot air keeps rising up and cold air taking its place. That process keeps taking place. What happens is that at some point, at a certain time, the entire room is going to get heated up, and that process of heat exchange from the vicinity of the hot region to the entire region of the house is what we term convection. I'm going to try to explain more. So what happens is this. So convection generally happens when fluid is unevenly heated. Fluid, we talk about solid or we talk about liquid. So the same process I've just explained takes place when we are boiling water or we're cooking food or whatever the case. So long as it involves gases or liquids, convection will always take place if heat has to be transferred. So I'm just going to read so I could be able to explain better. So as with the room heater, the warm portions of the fluid rises because of their lower density. Like I said, it was less dense, and the cold portion sinks because of their higher density. Thus, in convection, temperature differences result in the flow of the fluid. So an example we have is with example with cooking. So if you have the pot and we have the source of heat here, we have the source of heat here, what happens is the area underneath or at the bottom of the pot gets heated up, and as a result it becomes less dense than the area at the top. So what happens is the water at the bottom rises up, and the water at the top, which is cold, and because it's more dense, it goes down. And it keeps happening like that, and at some point the entire water will be heated up. And that's still another example of the process of convection. Another thing we can see is that convection just doesn't happen in a small scale like heating up a room or cooking food or boiling water or whatever. It also happens in a large scale like the atmosphere, like the atmosphere. Now we have two things that are very important when it comes to atmospheric condition. We have what we call the sea breeze and we have what we call the land breeze. Now I'm going to explain. Part A is a sea breeze and part B is a land breeze. Now what happens during the daytime? Now during the day, what happens is that the land gets heated up. That means the land, the surface that doesn't have water, gets heated up because of the low specific heat capacity, which we explain in fluid mechanics. Now because of the low heat specific heat capacity of the land, it gets heated up, the air around the surface of the land gets heated up, and as a result the air rises up. And since the sea gets heated slowly because of the high specific capacity of water, what happens is that the warm air in the land rises up, and the cold air in the sea has to flow to the land to occupy the air that has been that has left the land. And this process is what we call the sea breeze, because breeze leaves from the sea, which is denser, to the land, and air leaves the land because it is hot, because it is heated up and rises up, and that process keeps going on and on and on, and we call that sea breeze. And for part B, we call that land breeze, and it occurs during the night. Now we know that during the night, what happens during the night, generally during the night, the water is hotter than the land, so the land generally is colder than the water. As a result, the hot nature of the water of the sea, of the land, of the sea, makes the water in the sea to rise up because it's less dense, and because the land is colder, it and the air around the land is denser, the air flows from the land to the sea, and that's what we generally call the land breeze. So during the day we have sea breeze, during the night we have land breeze. And further explanation, we can also see further explanation for part A and part B, and that process that the land breeze or the sea breeze takes place is generally what we call convections, and those flow is what we call convection currents. So in convection, what we have said, the reason why warm air rises, number one, is because warm air expands, and as a result of the expansion, it becomes less dense and is buoyant upward, so it begins to move upward. So air rises until its density equals that of the surrounding air, obviously. And so let's try to see how we can answer these questions. Although warm air rises, why are mountain tops cold and snow covered, while the valley below are relatively warm and green? What do you think? You see, if we look at this, the A says warm air cools when rising, which is true, because it begins to take up the cold nature of the other air as it's rising up. So warm air generally cools when rising. There is a thick insulating blanket of air above the valleys. Yes. So the answer here generally will be C, both of the above, because the air atmosphere generally have a blanket. For example, just imagine that the Earth's atmosphere had no blanket. It means that we're going to lose all the heat that we can have. If we lose that, then everybody on earth is going to freeze to death. So as a result, the earth atmosphere just has a blanket such that the hot air that goes out is actually reflected back into the earth, and we have this balance in the cold and the heat nature of the earth for man, or for human being, to be able to survive on planet earth. Now let us look at another concept, which is the concept of radiation. I'm hoping that I'll use this video to finish everything on radiation. So radiation is a process in which energy is transferred by the means of electromagnetic waves. Now most of you must know, have not heard of electromagnetic waves. These are generally transverse waves. They are not longitudinal. I think you guys must have seen this in maybe end of the waves class, but if you've not, just know that electromagnetic waves are transverse in nature. They vibrate perpendicular to the direction of motion of the wave. So what happens is, if we want to be able to have radiation from the sun to the earth, this generally occurs by radiation, because electromagnetic waves that comprises the solar radiation is emitted into the surface of the earth. So mostly radiation always takes place between two objects where one is reasonably large as compared to the other, and it's also based off, it's almost close to convection, but it's mostly between a very big object and a very small object relatively, like the sun and the earth. So heat transfer by radiation. Now, in the transfer of energy by radiation, the absorption of electromagnetic wave is just as important as the emission. So two things takes place when we're talking about radiation. We have what we call absorption, and we have what we call emission. Emission is the process at which solar radiation leaves a particular surface. And if solar radiation leaves that particular surface, we say that heat is has been emitted by that particular surface. Now, if solar radiation enters into that object, we say that that object has absorbed solar radiation. So it's based off of two things, either absorption or emission. So the surface of an object plays a significant role when we are talking about heat radiation in determining how much energy, radiant energy, the object will absorb or emit. So it depends on the surface of the object. Now, for example, let's assume that if the surface of the object was black, Now in that case, because it's black and we generally know that black surfaces are very good absorbers, it means that it's going to absorb more of the radiant heat, and as a result it's going to become warm and or heated up. So I assume that the object was a white object or a very shiny object. It's going to emit nearly all the heat that comes to it, and as a result it becomes a good emitter. So we're going to see the difference between emitters and absorbers. So let's look at the example that we have here. So two blocks in the figure below are identical. So we have these two identical blocks and subject to sun radiation. So we have the sun hitting on those two objects. One has a rough surface coated with lamp black. So we have this. Let's just call this A, and that's a fine black suit, while the other has a highly polished silver surface, so which is that we call it B. As the thermometers indicate, the temperature of the black block rises at a much faster rate than that of the silver block. This is because the lamp block absorbs about 97% of the incident radiation energy, while the silver surface absorbs only 10%. So this A absorbs 90% and B absorbs just 10% of the total solar radiation that reaches its surface. Now, as a result of that, what can we say if we go back to A? We're saying that A generally becomes a good absorber of heat, while B becomes not a good absorber, but we'll call it a good emitter of heat. We're going to see the difference. So the remaining part of the incident energy is reflected in each case. We see the lamp hole as the lamp black as black in color because it reflects so little of the light falling on it, while the silvery surface looks like a mirror because it reflects so much light. Since the color black is associated with nearly complete absorption of visible light, the term perfect black body or simply black body is used when referring to an object that absorbs all the electromagnetic waves falling on it. So we have this same situation. So we're calling a black surface to be a good absorber but a bad emitter. We're calling a shiny surface to be a good emitter but not a bad absorber of heat. That's what we're trying to explain here. So in either case, if absorption were greater than emission, the object will experience a gain in energy. As a result, its temperature will rise. Similarly, if emission were greater than absorption, the temperature of the body will fall. Since absorption and emission are balanced, a material that is a good absorber like lamp black is also a good emitter, and a material that is poor absorber will polished silver is also a poor emitter. Now that is a very, very important concept. So we have the example like this below. So we have this example that talks about all the three methods by which heat is transferred. So we see that if we hold the pan with water to a flame, we see that the water at the bottom of the pot gets heated up and convection current set up, and the heated up water flows to the top and the cold water flows downward, and that's a process of convection. Now holding the hand of the pan, what happens is heat that flows from the pot generally gets to the hand by conduction, obviously because it's a solid, and the method by which the flame gets to the pot is the method of radiation. So in this example we can see all the three modes of heat radiation. So let's look at the last thing, emission and absorption. The surface of any material both absorbs and emits radiant energy. When the surface absorbs more energy than it emits, it's a net absorber, and as a result of that, the temperature is going to rise. The temperature is going to rise, right? Now, when a surface emits more energy than it absorbs, it's a net emitter, and the temperature tends to fall. So we have this example here, absorption and radiation energy. Now the ability of a material to absorb and radiate thermal energy is indicated by its color. Now if it's good absorbers and good emitters are dark in color, Poor absorbers and poor emitters are reflective or are they light in color. So if I ask you a question, what is compared to during the summer, which dress is good for someone to wear, you shouldn't say a dark material, because if it's dark, it means that it's going to absorb all the heat that it's going to have, and as a result the person is going to burn up. So generally during the summer, somebody should wear something white, something silvery, something that